Dell?
Just some associated questions, I think, and it's generally on travel. Did you previously, prior to the travel incidents or the fraud incidents, we'll call, run a risk process continually with Deloitte? Was there a risk?
Yeah, we do have a full risk framework that's regularly audited. We also audit our international offices on a regular basis, and we do China every couple of years as well. So I can actually hand over to my colleague Mark Craig, who oversees those processes.
Yes, so Deloitte have been our internal auditor for the last 4 years, and every year we do a couple of overseas offices, and China has been done. The last time we did an internal audit covered the period, I think, from July 21 to September 22. And as part of the broader forensic audit, we went back to June 20 and we covered the period December to December 23. So that was a 3.5 year period that was covered.
Okay. So how much does that audit process cost per annum?
It's approximately 150,000 for all the audits and the risk management work that they do.
And it didn't pick up that at that time frame because it just hadn't done a site visit to China.
It just wasn't picked up. Most of the transactions were in the period from recollection about October November, but it wasn't picked up at that time.
Has ANAO looked at this process and had any comments on the audit process?
We've had a clean bill of health from the ANAO for the last number of years.
Being careful, rewording in my head. You've reported this to the NAC. We're keeping other authority bodies away until that investigation is complete. Were any law enforcement organisations in China made aware of the situation?
I will wait until the NAC advisement to make any further
That's
comment.
not Australia, that's China. It's a different national. It's an entirely different area.
Yeah.
Were any law enforcement organisations in China made aware of this?
I'm not saying that it was a China issue necessarily. So,
I think it was just confirmed by the audit.
Well, Mark said
we do rotational audits, so we cover, a breadth of overseas audits. So last year we did Southeast Asian offices, which covered Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, and India.
I won't ask a China question, and I'll say in your statement on that issue, you said you got advice both Australia and internationally.
Yeah.
Have international law enforcement agencies been advised of this potential fraud?
Not yet.
Is there any reason you wouldn't let people know if some of these frauds allegedly happened overseas, that you wouldn't let foreign?
Yeah, the matter hasn't concluded yet. So
in Australia?
Yeah.
What about foreign?
The witness has already provided an answer to your question, Senator Cadell. I don't think...
Do any of these employees not reside in Australia?
I'll take everything on notice from here on in. Yeah.
Okay. So if are any of these people non-Australian citizens?
I'll take it on notice from here on in.
So if these people are not Australian citizens and don't reside in Australia, why haven't the law enforcement officials in those countries been informed?
I'll take that on notice.
Do we take Australian taxpayer money protection seriously if we aren't reporting to law enforcement when fraud happens with this money?
The investigation isn't closed, and I think I've demonstrated from my opening statement that we did everything we could to investigate the issue, and it's still an ongoing issue.
Did any of these people report to Mr. Hogg?
I'll take that on notice.
Senator, would it be helpful if you maybe put some of these questions on notice to the witness? I think it's fair to say she's going to take all of these on notice.
Well, they are different if they're not Australian citizens because they aren't subject to the NAC, and the NAC doesn't go over their chair.
I appreciate that, but I suspect the witness is trying to take advice, and as we have discussed earlier, I think she's reluctant to provide an answer in order not to compromise any ongoing investigations.
We've heard about Mr Hogg and the travel allowance, if a senator like us or a staff member for us travels somewhere, we have to say whether it's commercial or non-commercial, and there are different rates for that. Did Mr Hogg stay with a friend
He was with his family in Sydney, so
in Manly? Did he pay commercial rates for the Manly property?
Yes, he did.
Okay. What's the travel spend on the board and the senior executives every year?
This year to date, I've got that. I can get that for you. So I just want to provide the right exact numbers, so I will.
That's the total travel for all TA staff.
So this year, from 1 July to the 30th of April, the total travel of Tourism Australia staff is $1.179 million.
Is there a breakup available for board and senior executives that could be tabled later?
So I've got a breakdown of the executive leadership team, and that is to date $259,000.
Can that be tabled?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the board on notice as
The
well?
board is $81,000.
Okay. Broken down on notice, thank you.
And we can break it down on
Yep.
notice, yes.
I've got more concerns going forward. The referral in January to NAC, did any individual act prompt that? Did you receive advice to do that? Was that internally? What prompted the referral?
We've obviously been taking advice, and the advice was to refer it, yes.
Was that from government or from legal?
Legal.
Okay. I'll touch that there. I'll go to a different matter now. The Australian Tourism Exchange was in Melbourne not that long ago.
That's right.
Chit-chat going on outside.
And there is a bit of chit-chat out there, sir. How many delegates attended that event?
No, they will. They will.
So there was 2,600 delegates who attended, and of that number, it was made up of Australian industry, but also 700 international buyers.
Okay. And what's the purpose of the exchange generally?
So it's the largest event that we hold, and the purpose of the event is for our industry to meet with buyers internationally to do business. So there was 50,000 business appointments that were held over a period of 4 days.
That's big. Of the 700 international buyers, what nations make up the biggest chunk of that?
So there was 37 different nations there, and
Yep.
the largest contingent was from China. There was 125 buyers from China.
Okay. Was there a diplomatic incident caused by the exchange?
I'm not sure whether it was a diplomatic incident, but I assume you're referring to our opening event.
What countries did have a flag waved at the entry to the tourism exchange?
Yeah. So on the first night, we had a welcome event at the John Cain Arena, and it had a sports theme. And we had school children waving flags as people walked in the entrance. And there was an emission of the China flag, which was not intentional, but there was an emission of the China flag, and some of the delegates took offence at this and at some of the other flags that were waved.
So we didn't have... China was the biggest delegation from overseas and we didn't have their flag?
That's right.
I'm told
and I've got to say that was not the intention. The brief was a flag for every country that was represented there, but that just logistically didn't happen on the night. And when the events team realised the error, the flags were pulled immediately, and the children just stood there waving at the delegates as they arrived.
Did Not only did we omit the Chinese flag, did we have the Taiwanese flag and the Hong Kong flag?
We did. And as I said, that was an error, and that was not intentional. And as soon as the events team realised the error, the flags were pulled and the children just waved at the delegates as they arrived.
How did the Chinese delegation react to this?
They were, some of them were offended by it, and so the next morning we pulled them together and personally apologised. We also sent an apology on WeChat, and they accepted that apology. They moved on with the event, and we're just now, it only wrapped a couple of weeks ago, we're just now getting our reviews in from the China delegates, and so far 75 of them have sent in their reviews, and they've given us 100% satisfaction rating. So, look, it wasn't an incident that we hoped to have at an event like this, but I think the way that we managed it meant that, you know, they accepted our apology, we moved on.
We also didn't have USA and India, did we? Flags?
We didn't, no.
Were there any others left out?
I'm sure there were. It was, you know, some of the children didn't turn up on the night. Not all the flags were there. It was an error.
So,
I can't sugarcoat it. It was an error.
to his credit, did Prime Minister Albanese get involved to help smooth out the situation?
I wouldn't, not to my knowledge.
My understanding is that the ambassador was called to apologise. Have you heard that?
I haven't heard that, no.
Did any of the Chinese delegation leave and refuse to participate in that event?
On that first morning, a few didn't turn up to their appointments, but when we pulled them together, we explained that it was an error, we apologised, everybody went back to their appointments.
Okay. Was it an externally organised event, or was it organised internally within?
So we had an event organiser there who was external, but I have an events team who are responsible for delivering those events, and they were there on the night as well. But yes, yeah.
Okay. I'm right to rotate. Oh no, I've got more questions, but if there's more
Yeah, that's
questions,
right. Happy to rotate.
Yep.
Senator Cox.